Another Sunny D extraction game video. Daring today, aren't we? But I'd say that my diverse experience with and passion for extraction games gives me the relative authority to say this. Extraction games are currently in a bubble, and it's gonna burst. Real soon. Big company attempts like the Division Heartland got scrapped. This one hurts me as a big Division fan, and especially the legendary Division 1 survival mode. But small studio attempts to do something different, like Level 0 Extraction's horror and asymmetrical multiplayer gimmick, just failed out of the gate because it was trying to do too many things at once. But why are these games failing? The why is a combination of a multitude of reasons. Firstly is oversaturation. Extraction is the new battle royale, and we all remember what the gaming industry was like as soon as the cash-hungry and visionless executives saw that it was the next cow to be milked. They ditched style and substance and tried to pump out BRs like there was no tomorrow, all in the hopes of being the next Fortnite or PUBG. Tarkov basically created the extraction genre. There has been ideas and elements of the systems floating around throughout other games, but it was the first to make the entire game about going in and looting, and then losing everything when you die. An evolution of the survival and looter-shooter games. This system works great if you like that type of risk versus reward, but the issue is, a large portion of the gaming community doesn't like that. They like to keep loot, or don't like the big PvP element, or they just don't have the time commitment to keep up with a genre that regularly enforces wiping your progress for the sake of making new progress. As someone that's moved to PvE Tarkov after not having enough time to compete in the regular wipe cycle, I get it. Extraction games are Marmite. Either you love them, or you hate them. I love extraction games, but I fucking hate Marmite. The thing is, Battle Royale is basically a mode that can be applied to almost any game. First or third person shooter, add a Battle Royale. Top-down ARPG, add a Battle Royale. Honorable mention goes to Battle Rights Battle Royale. The movement in that game was so fun. So many games add a Battle Royale mode, and so many of them failed. Battlefield Firestorm is a perfect example of a flop that hit so bad, it almost made no sound when it died. There's so many Battle Royales that died shortly after launch. Radical Heights, Hyperscape, The Culling 2, Realm Royale. But going back to Battlefield, after Firestorm they tried another side venture, Hazard Zone, a poor imitation of the extraction formula with no risk or reward. Which leads me onto the fact. Developers don't understand why extractions are great. Extraction games are failing left and right, with new ones seeming to be dead on arrival, like Marathon, because of a combination of plagiarism, giving the game a bad reputation, and not understanding that the friction of the in-depth systems is what makes these games replayable for hundreds or thousands of hours. Whenever I see a new extraction game announcement say they're trying to remove the friction that comes with the genre, I get worried. A game's complexity can be completely overwhelming at first, but learning and mastering a system feels great. You can feel the experience and knowledge combine into a sense of mastery. In my opinion, an extraction game needs 3 core pillars in order to be successful, or to stand on its own. First is core gameplay, second is a good theme, and third is out-of-raid progression. Core gameplay is fundamentally simple. You want the game to be fun, right? But alongside the fun of a game, an extraction game should have tension, of fear, a yin and a yang of lows and highs. In a world without sorrow, joy loses all meaning. I can still think of many a time where I escaped death by a hair, a bag full of amazing loot. And yes, the extraction and subsequent joy that came with knowing I was out was great. But the tension, the sweat forming on my forehead, the rushing thoughts and plans I was making in my head to escape, that was brilliant as well. Because if I didn't care about the stuff I had, then aside from the fun gunplay, the amount of running from A to B these games have would be a chore rather than an exercise in enjoyable stress and tension. A scav run in Tarkov is being given a random set of rusted gear, and a challenge. Go use this gear that you can barely defend yourself with, and try to either fill your pockets with as much junk as you can get out and make some money, or you roll the dice and attempt PvP to try and take someone else's hard-earned gear, whilst knowing that you're generally on the underdog side. In contrast, Delta Force's scav-like system involves using one of 3 tiers of gear tokens. You can earn these by doing quests or events. A basic token is the absolute lowest tier of gear, only for filling your pockets and avoiding all combat. The middle tier token gives you a bit more of a fighting chance if you want to fight someone, and a larger capacity backpack and rig if you just want to loot and run. And a high tier token gives gear better than what some average players might run, meaning you have more confidence in fights and a large looting potential. But this system is far too generous. There is no loss in gear scavving in Tarkov aside from anything that you find in that raid, but that's balanced by getting low quality gear to start off with, setting you on the back foot. Delta Force's systems throw these gear tokens at you, meaning I generally just run medium or high tokens on almost all of my runs, because I get enough of them that I don't really care about using them all, even if I go on a death streak. The gear means less to me, meaning if I die, I'm just not that bothered. But gear should be valuable, it should have weight attached to it. Stakes and conditions. A great extraction game balances your equipped gear versus what you have in your pockets, against how easy or hard it is to get out of the raid with it. Depth of value and utility. But this also includes depth of mechanic. Say for example, the huge array of bullet calibers and types in Tarkov, alongside the armor system. With game knowledge comes the passive trait of becoming a human wiki. You can see a bullet name in game and know what it's good or bad at. High armor pen ammo does less damage, higher damage ammo does less penetration, with trade-offs in the middle. Once again, compare that to Delta Force, which has a lot of quality of life features strewn throughout the game, where each caliber has 4 to 5 tiers of ammo, indicated by an MMO loot tier coloured background. The thing is, in making it visually simpler, they also just made each tier of ammo better than the last. Getting caught out in the open by someone rocking gold ammo whilst you're on blue just makes you feel like you didn't stand much of a chance. There's always the potential you could win, but your win is based on their aiming mistakes and not on your ability to gunfight. There is less depth in the system, therefore less to learn and master, with a less tangible feeling of reward for understanding a game's mechanics. On to the next point. A good theme sounds broad, but in reality, it's rather simple. There are already so many modern military-themed extraction shooters. Don't get me wrong, I love a tactical LARP. But Arena Breakout, Tarkov, Delta Force, Lost Light, Grey Zone, Incursion Red River, DMZ, they all have the same general modern arms and time period setting. Then you look at games like the Forever Winter. Holy mother of God, talk about a break from the usual style, completely changing the aesthetics and gameplay role to go along with it. Instead of some generic gruff PMC, you're a pathetically weak scavenger in a robot-infested hellscape, with some phenomenal world design that truly feels like you're raking in the gutters of a battlefield that seems like it's only ever known war. Even Marauders, trying a space dieselpunk industrial styled world, is unique compared to Military Man number 300. This one is a sad example for me, as it seems like it's been left to die by the developers, and that's a real shame. But a game's unique style or commitment to atmosphere and depth is so important. I can give Tarkov shit for being generic military world on a surface level, but the map design is 10 out of 10. The world and its cluttered interiors feels lived in, and then subsequently abandoned. It has huge world building and environmental storytelling on every map. Its rigid theme that also oozes style from things like the boss designs or unique places of interest keep it as top dog for a reason. Finally, out of raid progression. And this one is vital for retaining players over time. We all love grabbing loot one way or another, but what incentivizes grabbing loot in extraction games? Well, generally, there's always a money system behind it, selling loot for money to buy the gear you want to use. Simple in ability to understand, but also too simple to remain engaging for long, so hinders the longevity of the game. Tarkov's Hideout, Arc Raiders workbenches, Delta Force's copy of Tarkov's Hideout, they all provide incentives to gather loot in the world, not to sell, but to keep. To be used to upgrade hideout aspects. They give you stuff like more storage space, access to craftable gear, passive bonuses, and generally things that make you feel like your time playing the game will be better or easier because of them. Aside from a generic account level number or money in your pocket, this is a tangible progression metric. I adored Call of Duty's attempt at extraction, DMZ. I still go back to play from time to time for my nostalgia and the fun gunplay, but DMZ had one glaring issue across its lifespan. It didn't have back-end systems to support the core gameplay. At first, there was basically no out-of-raid progression. You had staple quests that every game of this type does. But aside from that, there was no loot stacking except for guns, there was no increasing stash space, no perks or quality of life for grinding and playing the game. The core worked, but it had nothing to retain people. This was improved season by season, and where the game sits now is where it should have been at launch. Multiple progression routes, upgrades, passives, utilities, and expanded maps and mechanics. DMZ rests as a great attempt, but its issue was that it was sadly too slow. It lost most of its players past season 1 and 2, as well as some controversial changes such as removing 6 stacks and pay for advantage bundles in the cash shop left its legacy stained. Now at the time of writing, some of the game's quests are uncompletable because the items were removed from the spawn pool for causing duplication glitches, but in a disgusting display of irony, now the only way to get them is by contacting someone who has them in reserve and knows how to do the duplication glitch. DMZ removed the friction, but doing that removed progression. They fumbled the bag early and lost the short attention span that COD players have. In the same vein, COD and its audience is not too dissimilar to Destiny 2 players. I know because I used to play both. But as I knew that the average COD player wouldn't go crazy over DMZ, I know that the average Destiny 2 fan isn't jumping for joy over Marathon, because extraction is a niche genre. We talked about this earlier, but the comparison of extractions being the next evolution trend from battle royales is an obvious factor, but the player base just isn't there. Tarkov is the king because it's unique and specific. It has a huge player base that are all ravenously passionate about the game, myself included, but that passion comes from doing its own thing and doing it well, ignoring the netcode, audio performance and balancing issues of course. To take a big brand and add extraction on top of whichever base mechanic it has is setting a game up for failure. Work has to be done to understand the ecosystem and trends going on within gaming as a whole, as well as the trends going on inside the extraction genre. Arc Raiders is a great example of a new extraction game that has gamers from multiple genres super excited. Its third-person view, unique enemy design and playstyles, removing some of the friction from systems, but still keeping a level of complexity towards progression, as well as an aesthetic we haven't seen in the space so far, sets it apart from the competition. Now, I'm not trying to be a contrarian here, but I thought the beta was okay. I can totally see why people are excited for it. The most recent beta was a huge leap forward compared to the previous tests I'd played. I just think that third-person and shooter games creates a really cringe corner camping for visibility meta, but Arc Raiders is doing something unique and also has large-scale appeal. Compare this to something like Marathon. I was so excited to hear about that game. Bungie's gunplay is top tier, and is the reason I put so much time into Destiny 2. But after long periods of radio silence, they finally revealed gameplay. And aside from the plagiarism will make me god art style, the systems within the game are just the developers copying the homework of other games, but poorly. From their hideout progression systems, being a nothing burger of minuscule upgrades and gear access. With everything I've seen about it, it seems to be designed to look and feel as simple and clean as possible. But with that comes the issue of lacking depth, as per my earlier points. Needless specialization for the sake of fake progression. Alongside the game also having a really strange balancing of the runner's kit. Hero shooter mechanics in extraction games are a really hard thing to balance, doubly so with how strong Bungie's made them. One of the characters has full-on wall hacks as their ultimate, showing exactly where nearby enemies are, a mechanic that will be completely abused by the strongest players to crush the weakest. Compare this once again to Delta Force, where Hackclaw's ult lets her see a path to nearby enemies, changing colour based on how close they are to her. This is the same skill, balanced two different ways. One can give an advantage if used well at best, and at worst gives information that doesn't fully compromise gameplay. The other is just wall hacks if used correctly. And incorrectly, it's just a waste of an ability if no one else is around. The story is that the higher-ups in Bungie played a lot of Tarkov when it came out, and went, we should do our own version of this. But they don't understand what made it good. Does a Destiny or Halo player want their gear to be lost every time they die? Do they want inherently more toxic gameplay due to the stakes of each raid? Do they want their progress wiped without any prestige? Just to do the same thing again? I don't think they do. And judging by the reception of the masses to extraction games, I feel as if for a lot of people, the gimmick is wearing thin. I adore this genre. It's my main staple when I'm not back on the heroin that is old school RuneScape. But the sighs I hear from my friends when a cool looking shooter reveals itself to be an extraction game is something I've heard one too many times. The Battle Royale bubble took a long time to burst, and to an extent, it is still lingering, with the next Battlefield game having leaked files showing another attempt at a Battle Royale mode, and other games still adding tacked on modes or even new standalone BR games. I think we're over halfway through the extraction bubble, and contrary to what you may think, in the final wobbles of this bubble, we're going to be getting even more extraction games. Because games take a long time to make, and executives take a long time to catch up on trends. But mark my words, this bubble will burst soon. What comes after, I've got no idea. But personally, I want another zombie game bubble. Zombies are fucking awesome, and I want even more zombie games in every genre. In fact, someone should make a zombie extraction shooter. That would be... Wait, no, not like that, no!